because I know hitting that little button to get recording is your favorite thing in the whole world.
It's the best part of my day.
Oh, so we've got a couple of shorter episodes coming up. I don't know. The way we run our mouths, we'll probably still hit an hour. I've gotten some feedback from some folks that listen to the Wheat Growers Hotel story, and they really like that. And then you told me...
I also got some compliments from the Wheat Growers and the Baby Ruth one. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Quite a few.
And I got an email from the intern archivist at Legacy. And I didn't realize I did go do a search afterwards. I don't normally search myself online because I don't care. But I got an email from them that they want to do a special exhibition on the Great Miss Bish.
That's awesome.
And I guess everything that turns up is something I did.
I think that's fun.
So I said,
Love Miss Bish.
and the cool thing is, I told them, I said, all the pictures that I had taken, with the exception of the one that was in the state archives, belonged to the Star Herald. So I don't actually have the pictures of all of her stuff. And I said, I would love to be able to have new pictures of that. And they said, yeah, no problem. So
did they take stuff out of the storage then?
No, so
I didn't see her stuff last time.
The big room area, I don't know what you call it, the museum, that's all permanent stuff. But when you walk in, if you turn right, it used to be a gift shop, it's not anymore, but you walk in and you can kind of go to the left and kind of go to the right, because they're not like directly off of each other. And if you turn to the right, you go into that room with the tractor and you start your museum tour.
Yeah.
If you go to the left, there's a big room that they put temporary exhibits in.
Oh, okay. And there just wasn't anything. Last time you and I were there must have not been anything going on.
Yeah, there wasn't anything in there. And so they wanted to do something for Miss Bish. And every time they're trying to find info, it keeps coming back to me. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you. So I will be talking to them on Saturday.
Maybe they'll play our podcast in the background.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Instead of music.
That'd be awesome. Just put it on repeat. Yeah, they could easily do that.
Just give us
give us a plug, man.
Yeah, give us a plug. There you go. Put us in your museum. I think we did good.
I would go down there and I would make somebody take a picture of both of us standing next to it. Yeah. Be like, hey, we're good. So I was supposed to meet with them yesterday, and they had to change the times.
I was wondering about that because
I was going to text you and say, hey, don't forget, if you're free, come on over.
Yeah.
And then I didn't. And I probably should have texted you to let you know that it got rescheduled. But there were some other things going on in the North household, so I completely forgot. So I'm going to be meeting Saturday, March 29th at 10 a.m.
Okay.
So that's in 2 weeks from yesterday. And hopefully you can go too, because it's your podcast too.
No, it'd be very, very fun to go and do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just talk about
Miss Bish.
And it's always nice to talk to other people, and especially people who are interested in the same subject matter, because that's hard to find around here.
Yes,
it's like there's a bunch of history buffs, but we're all recluses. So.
Yeah, and so it'll be nice too, because maybe the archivist knows of a story that we don't know about and can give us info. And I have a friend as well. On Friday, she gave me some information about Reagan was here in 1967. I haven't done a lot of research on it yet. She showed me pictures. It was June 24th, 67. I found the audio of his speech in the Reagan archives, in the Reagan Library archives. So now I got to go down to Legacy and see if they have anything on it. But I have a date that he was here, and I can go to the archives of the Star Herald, because someone surely wrote a letter. So this was in June, and the previous January, so 6 months before, he became governor of California. I would think that would be in the news.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to find some info on that and then maybe do a story, because the only other famous person, not famous person, but presidential type person was RFK came through here as well when he was doing his presidential run before he was assassinated.
I didn't know that either.
And that's literally all I know about both of them. So I'm looking forward to find out more information.
Yeah, interesting presidents.
Yeah. We'll leave it at interesting.
Did you say RFK or JFK?
RFK.
RFK,
yeah.
Okay.
I believe, I want to say it was 68 that RFK came through here, but I don't remember. I've literally just seen a picture.
Yeah, because then that would have been right before you got shot.
Yeah, it was very shortly before he got shot. So and I don't know why Reagan was here, because I found the speech and I saved it because it's, it's a government website. It's free, and I downloaded it. But I haven't listened to it yet, so I still don't know why he was here in town.
I could see Reagan finding this area pretty quaint.
Yeah.
Reagan was a weird character like that.
And he also used to be a little bit more Democratic leaning, but, you're also coming on the tail end there of civil rights when we had that shift, because they wanted to get the Dixiecrats and, the Republican and Democrat flipped. And so it was still a weird mixed time of whether you were Democrat or Republican. And,
oh, yeah. Well, then you, even Nixon, who, everyone disagrees with Nixon for what he did, but a lot of people didn't know all the bills he passed, especially with wildlife conservation and things for the ecosystem that I always appreciated.
Yeah.
You're right. Before politics has become so polarizing,
there was a mix.
It wasn't just a president; that was just one thing. And I think that's kind of changed a bit, or at least presidents now are trying to be one thing instead of the other when they don't really need to be.
No. So that's our politics for today on Storytelling on the Plains.
And stop.
And today we're just going to focus on one woman who came here on the trail. Her name is Amanda Lamme. It's Lamme. And I'm just going to, most of the time, because of the way I'm trained to write as a journalist, you use last name. But I'm not sure of her pronunciation, so I'm going to stick with Amanda throughout the podcast, because she's who we're talking about. And I don't know if her name is Lamme. I'm not sure. It's Lamme.
Could be French Lamme.
Yeah. And there was no accent, but was there an accent there originally? Who knows? Amanda, we got you. It's Amanda. A couple of weeks ago.
Better than latrine.
It's true.
Changed it to latrine.
A couple of weeks ago, my husband and I went out for a drive just along the edge of the North Platte River as best as you can along the highway. And we were getting close to Bridgeport, and we just decided to drive to Sydney. So we drove down to Sydney, and I ended up getting a very cool new jacket at, not Cabela's anymore. Bass Pro Shops.
Pro Shop. Yeah, they changed it. Yeah.
It's the first piece of female clothing I have bought in like 30 years.
Wow.
And it fits, and it's an awesome jacket. But when we went down there, I passed by her historical marker, and I knew I had pictures of her historical marker from driving down that way before, and I've never read it. And when you read the marker, it's just very simple about a confusion in her name, and that she died on the trail from cholera. It's not your, like when you go to Rebecca Winter's historical marker, you pretty much get the whole story there. With Amanda, it's like, so she had this marker and it broke, and we put this one up, and she died of cholera. Cholera bad. Lots of people died of cholera. That's essentially what the marker says. And so I wanted to find...
Not everyone out here are dead ringers,
Yeah.
Don't have can't win them all. You feel bad for the poor guy that has to write and do all that stuff, you know, and have to bring the whole thing out there.
Yeah.
Maybe he just said, maybe this was just a day he said, nah, screw it.
They're like, whatever.
Amanda Lamme, she died.
Yeah, she died of cholera.
Right.
Yeah.
On to the next 4,200 I have to do in this state.
That's a good question. How many historical markers do we have?
I can only imagine any state I go to, I can only imagine there's so many.
Yeah.
Especially, when we recently drove down to Phoenix and we went through New Mexico, through Santa Fe, and I can't even tell you how many there were.
Yeah.
There's just almost every few miles, there was like important site. Of course, there's a lot of history down there.
Yeah.
And you had all that stuff about the Santa Fe Trail, which is what we were traveling on, was the old Santa Fe Trail. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I can't imagine how many there are here. Just going out north to Harrison, I count at least 10 or 12.
Yeah, there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, even at Fort Robb, the Cheyenne Breakout historical marker is at Fort Robb. There's one for Fort Robb.
There's one just outside of it.
Yeah.
I think it's for the butte or the valley that it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then about a mile north of town, well, you go 3 miles east to Crawford, and then like a mile north, there's the marker for the names of the buttes that are out there that I can't remember the names, so I'm glad they made a historical marker, because I'm terrible at remembering things. Like when people will say to me, oh, you did a story on Amanda Lamme. Yeah, I did. Well, what about this? Oh, did I actually say that? Like, certain things just don't stick in my head. The Miss Bish, I've done her so many times, and her story is just so awesome that she's in my head. But a lot of stories don't stick in my head. And it's just the sheer number of them that I've done. When I worked at the Star Herald, I was doing between 20 and 27 stories a month. And now times that by 5.5 years.
Yuck.
So
Sorry.
Yeah. And there are some stories that I'm like, oh yeah, I did a story on that. Don't remember anything I wrote about it, but I remember I did that story.
I was there that one day I did that.
Yep. Oh, did I do that? Well, yeah, my byline's there. It must have been me. So I want to spend most of our time today using Amanda as an example, too, of why history is sometimes difficult to determine, and how her name was wrong for more than 100 years on markers near where she's reportedly buried. It's just because that marker to me is so unique from every other marker I've come across. Every other marker, it's here's this thing, this is what this thing is, this is why it's important to remember. Mm-hmm. And for her, it was just, her grave's over there.
Dead girl on the highway.
Yeah. So I did find a little bit out about her as well, so I'll include that. But hopefully listeners will hear and understand why it can be so difficult to find some of this information. And, a lot of things weren't written down either, so you got to go with that. I want to begin by reading exactly what is cited on the Nebraska State Historical Society marker, so you get an idea of why this intrigued me and why I wanted to know more. On June 23rd, 1850, 28-year-old Amanda Lamme, a California-bound emigrant, died of cholera and was buried near here in what is now private pasture land. She was the wife of M.J. Lamme of Boone County, Missouri, and mother of 3 daughters. The monument that marks her grave was erected in 1912. It was incorrectly engraved with the name Amanda Lamme, Lamin. Between 1842 and 1849, an estimated 20,000 immigrants and about 5% of the total died along the overland trails. Cholera in 1849, 59, and 52, which I do not know why they did it out of order, caused many adult deaths. Because, yes, the marker has the dates out of order. Why? Anyway, few children died from this. Malaria, smallpox, measles, and dysentery took a toll on children and adult alike. So cholera nailed adults way more than kids. So maybe we should do scientific studies into why kids don't die from it. Although wagons moved slowly, people were sometimes crushed beneath the wheels. Drownings were common at river crossings. Accidental shootings were frequent because many travelers were unfamiliar with the use of firearms. Contrary to movie and television portrayals, few emigrants were killed by Indians. The risk of death was probably about the same for the immigrants as for the people who stayed home. That's it. So literally all you know is this woman died of cholera. Her supposed original grave is on private land now. And they got her name wrong. Adults die, not kids, from cholera. And here's some other ways people died. There's a story there. Why are we erecting this monument? Why is this woman important? I mean, yes, all people are important, but you named the woman by name and that she had a grave, but then why are you not telling her story? Yeah. So I started digging around because I wanted to know. And then I knew this was going to be a podcast episode. So now we're going to dive into all of that. In order to understand how Amanda's last name got mixed up, we need to tell her story as well as showcase the research done by Reg P. Duffin. Reg is, and I'm not sure if Reg is male or female, because it could be short for Reggie, Regina, not sure.
Oh, okay.
But when Reg's research was published in an article in Nebraska History in 1977 titled Amanda Lamme, Devonshire, England, or Amanda Lamme, Marthasville, Missouri. And when Reg refers to themselves, it's just I. There's like no indication of whether Reg was male or female. So I'm going. If I happen to slip into he, it's the generic he, not because I know Reg was a he or a she. And I did some Google searches to try and figure that out, and I couldn't. So before we go any further, Amanda's stone marker is not on the edge of the highway like the Historical Society sign, and that's where you find most of these markers. They're on the side of the highway, and then your important thing is just a short distance away if it's not at that specific site. Like Rebecca Winters, the marker is literally next to her grave. Yeah. And if you go west toward the Wyoming border, a couple miles before the Wyoming border, there's that whole little spread of markers about the Horse Creek Treaty, and it says on there that the treaty was signed 3 miles south, and it's because it's today on private pasture land in a slightly wooded area. And so because Highway 92, if you retrace the Oregon Trail, you come through that part of the road. You don't come through anywhere near where that treaty actually was. So they moved it up to the highway, and they explained that on the marker. That's why it's up this far. So anyway, Amanda's stone marker is about a 15-minute ride on a four-wheeler onto private property, and I really strongly advise don't go out on people's property willy-nilly. Get permission. Just don't wander out there, especially in western Nebraska, because you may be faced with the tail end of a shotgun. Just don't do it. Be respectful. Ask around, get permission. People are friendly here. I know if I went out there and said I'd like to see it and take a couple pictures, somebody would take me out there.
Yeah, and if they really don't, it's usually just because of maybe calving season, or maybe they have some mean bulls out. But doesn't usually they'll tell you, "I'll come back later," and when the bulls aren't in or whatever.
Or I'm busy today. Can we do it Saturday? Something like that. Yeah. And from another website that I had found some information on, it's roughly a mile long trek to the gravesite from the historical marker. And you're trudging over pasture land, so you also risk prairie rattlesnakes certain times of the year. And it is pasture land. There are cows out there, and the cows are going to come up in part of the story here in a minute. So do you really want to be wandering around like that? No. Just be kind and respectful, and, people would help you out if you wanted to see it. Mm-hmm. I have not been out to see the actual grave site. I've just been to the historical marker, but I've read on a couple of websites that when you go out there, you can see the wagon ruts, and you can see where the wagons went around the marker. So gotcha. It's almost like, you're traveling straight, and then you just kind of go around it and then go back straight. Again, I haven't been out there, so I can't confirm that. But I did find that on 2 different websites from 2 different people, and it didn't appear like one was copying from the other. So who was Amanda Lamme, and how did her name get misspelled to Lammen? This is where honest mistakes come in, and through the work of Duffin and a distant relative who wrote about it on their website, we can kind of see what happened. The writer of the blog Random Walks in Time has a lengthy article about Amanda's life and the fact that they are distant related to Amanda's husband, who was also the great-grandson of the famous Daniel Boone.
Oh, okay.
So there's a reason why we got a historical marker from her. She was married to the dude that was the great-grandson of Daniel Boone. So there's... I see.
That's something, I guess.
Yeah, that's something.
That's more of a reason I'll get a marker, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the great-great-grandson of anyone special.
Yeah. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of somebody, but none of us were special. So Amanda was born on February 22nd, 1822 in Missouri. Her parents were Thomas and Anna Maupin. Amanda married May Jackson Jack Lamme sometime in August 1841 in Boone County, Missouri. And so I've come across his name as May Jackson, Jack, and MJ. And I'm guessing, depending on how he's related to somebody, is how they're referring to him. I go by 3 names too. So yeah, and my nephew's name is David, and David, dumbass. He'll answer all of those.
Well, that last one's all guys have that.
Yeah. I've been called that last one too.
Oh, that's not polite.
No,
guys, yes, all guys deserve that. Definitely deserve that last name. Yeah.
It has also been reported that she had 3 daughters, Laura, Alcis, and Frances Ann. There is some question about Frances Ann, and it's a little confusing. And I really didn't want to spend hours trying to figure this out. So just know some records say Frances Ann exists. Some say she doesn't. There were only 2 daughters. It could also be...
Nobody likes to talk about Frances.
Yeah, it could also be that maybe they fell out with Frances and nobody talked about her.
We just don't talk about Frances.
Yeah.
She's like one of the black sheep of the family. We just don't ask about Frances.
Yeah, she's alive, we think. But we don't talk about her. So Amanda and her family left Marthasville, Missouri in April 1850. They traveled with the Maupins, who were her parents. Together, they crossed the Big Blue River at Independence Crossing in Marysville, Kansas on May 28th, so making good time. At the Little Blue River north of Marysville and into Nebraska, there were reports of cholera, so everybody started getting worried because they started hearing about it. Mm-hmm. By the time they reached Fort Kearny on June 8th, Jack, or MJ, had penned a letter to his mother noting his fears about the extent of cholera and the number of graves he had passed. If you ever read diaries from people, they talk a lot about the graves that they pass. There are so many. And a lot of them, you might just see a freshly dug grave. Maybe they get a little wooden cross with their name etched in it. Yep. But there are so many, and people...
But like you said before, it was common everywhere. It wasn't just on the trail, and staying home or traveling probably didn't make it or break it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. They continued on their journey, stopping at Ash Hollow on June 20th to rest for the day. I still have a plan, and I would like to do it in the next couple months before it gets too busy down at Ash Hollow. I would like to leave here at like 6 o'clock in the morning, drive down to Ash Hollow, spend the day hiking, and come back.
It's really pretty. I like Ash Hollow.
I have not, believe it or not, I have not made it out there, and I don't know why. There's like no reason why, but it's on my list of places to visit this year.
Yeah, it's very, very pretty. Same with the. Well, Jason and I were going to go there, but we were a bit on a time schedule. If you head up to Valentine's and see the Niobrara and the forest out there is really, really, really pretty. Yeah,
that's another place I still haven't made it, and it's just mainly lack of time. You know, when I think, oh, I want to go to, Ash Hollow. Oh, well, I got this, and this list of 16 things I need to do this week. And then it gets to be Saturday, and I'm like, I'm too tired to drive 4 hours, or 2, however long it takes to get there. I don't know. But I don't even want to drive 20 minutes to go get groceries after I've done 16 things in a week. So,
I understand.
So they, a day after that, on June 22nd, I did not write that right because it was on June 22nd. So a day after June 20th is the 21st.
I think that's how math works.
Yeah. Was not a math whiz in school, folks. On June 22nd, Amanda got sick. I think I was just trying to be a little creative with that, and my creativity failed me there. She was reportedly suffering from abdominal cramps, fever, and diarrhea. Hoping to get her fresh water at Pumpkin Creek, Jack put Amanda in the wagon, made her as comfortable as possible, and pushed the family west with all possible haste. So she's walking up until this point, and she's so sick now, she can't even walk to Pumpkin Creek, which is not that far away from where she died. Again, I'm not good with distances or math, but I don't think it's more than a mile from there. I think it's even closer.
I guess I need a map.
Yeah, I need a map, and I need to do
Pumpkin Creek.
Yeah, I need to do Google Drive, or not Google Drive, Google Maps, and put my directions in to see exactly how far it is. I know it's not that far for me if I'm in my car and I'm at Pumpkin Creek. It's like, la, 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 oh, here I am, here's your water. But they're walking. And she just couldn't do that anymore. So there's really nothing you can do. You either leave them behind, let them die, or you put them in the wagon and you take them with you and you hope that they get better. We're not talking today's medicine.
And the chances of you getting better are very bleak.
Yeah. Cholera takes you quickly.
Yeah, you can get over it. I think we might have talked about a couple people that got over it.
Yeah.
In the past, so you can overcome it, but yeah, it's very
but
hard.
if it's going to take you, you're done in a day or two.
Yep.
And so Amanda had contracted cholera, and she succumbed the next day, June 23rd, 1850. So she seemed to be okay on the 20th when they stopped at Ash Hollow, and Ash Hollow was also a big camping area. It was a stop where folks stopped along the trail to rest. And 2 days later, she was sick as a dog, and the next day she died. So it comes on quickly, and it kills you quickly. So Jack wanted to bury her. But we're also faced with, we need to keep moving west or everybody else is going to die, because there is a time frame that you need to get west by, or you're going to die in a blizzard somewhere in Wyoming.
Yep, you have to get to Fort Laramie at the very least, or past it. And Fort Laramie back then wasn't necessarily able to accommodate everyone all the time.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm not sure how far Fort Laramie is from here, but it's what, like 50-minute drive today from Scottsbluff?
to Laramie?
No, it's farther than
It's
that.
way
Sorry,
farther than
I'm thinking Torrington.
You only get to Torrington.
Yeah.
Cheyenne's a little further, and Laramie's past Cheyenne. I want to say it's about 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By car in
car.
2025.
Yeah, by car. And it actually might be closer to 4 because you hit I think you get by not Rubidoux, but Vidawoo. I think you go by Vidawoo first before you get into Laramie.
Okay.
The Vidawoo National Park or National Forest, which is the Medicine Bow National Forest, I think it is.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they can't stop.
No, you can't stop.
They have to keep going, but Jack wants to bury her. So Jack and Amanda's father found a nice spot in a grove of trees, and it's reportedly that grove of trees is in where she was buried, was also in a straight line of sight to Jail and Courthouse Rocks. So she would be able to see the rocks, you know. Again, I don't know. I haven't been there to stand where the gravesite is supposed to be to see if that's what it is. And they took a board from one of the wagons and carved her name in capital letters in it. And this is usually all anybody got. We buried you a few feet down, deep enough that, you know, the coyotes aren't going to come in and dig you up and eat you. And then you get just a little piece of wood with your name on it. And over time, that's going to wear away. But the wagons continued west, and Jack headed back east. I saw a couple places where they said for sure he went to Fort Kearny to get a headstone for Amanda, and I saw a couple of other places that said they couldn't verify that. That's the story that's out there, but they couldn't verify that that's specifically where he went. So we don't actually know how far back east he went, but local legends say he put the headstone, which was granite, into a wheelbarrow. I have never been able to say that word.
Wheelbarrow?
Yes, thank you. And pushed it back the 200 miles back to Amanda's grave.
Jesus.
Yeah, so dude loved her.
No kidding. That's really like sweet thing to do.
Yeah.
It makes my heart all warm.
Yeah. I was like, man, dude, I don't know many people that would do that today.
Well, not a lot because you probably didn't have to travel 200 miles to find a granite boulder. That was his fault. Yeah. You probably didn't have to go that far, but it's still very sweet.
Yeah. So after his task was accomplished, Jack continued west. And I guess he got it engraved as well, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I'm not just skipping the fact that he traveled a long way to get a hunk of granite. But it's going to come up here in a second. I just want to let everybody know once he got that done, he headed west, and he joined back up with the family. I couldn't really find where he joined back up with them. So I don't know how long this took, but they all did end up arriving together in Marysville, California in October 1850. So, I would also imagine if he's by himself, I don't know if it was me, I'd ditch the wheelbarrow and just grab my crap and run as much as I could every day and walk, run, walk until I caught up to my family. That's what I would do to catch up to them. We don't actually know. It's not really written anywhere, but they were back together when they arrived in California. Jack eventually returned to Boone County, Missouri. I'm just assuming he hated it in California because he lived the rest of his life in Missouri. In 1858, he remarried, and then he had 2 more children, Joseph and Ida. He and Amanda's children remained in California, and at least Alcis took the name of Mopin. So I'm guessing the girls were still young, underage, not married, and at least Alcis, who was the youngest, took her grandparents' name. It's probably easier than to try and explain all that other crap. These are my grandparents, you know.
Yeah.
This
is like, this just, yeah.
Yeah, it's just easier. It's like I tell everybody my mom was a nurse, and technically she was a therapy aide, and unless you're about my age or older and grew up in the mid-Atlantic to northeastern states, you have no idea what a therapy aide is. And basically a therapy aide can do everything a nurse can do except for give meds and enemas. So it's a lot easier to just say my mom was a nurse. And I can tell you, she did give out meds. She didn't do enemas though. She fell back. Yeah, she fell back.
Shit from nobody.
Exactly. She fell back on that license hard. Nope, my license says I can't do enemas, but passing out meds, yeah, she helped with that. So I can see where it would be easier. You know, you came all that way, you lost your mom on the way, and then your dad doesn't want to stay. You know, yeah, I'm staying with grandma and grandpa, and I'm taking their name. Mm-hmm. My nephew, as a matter of fact, has my mom's last name.
Yeah, and I think I have cousins that have done similar things. Yeah.
So I don't think it was uncommon then, and it's certainly not uncommon today. Yeah. And you know, if you know somebody that has done that and they don't talk about it, be respectful because there's a reason why they did it. And don't open old wounds if you don't have to. But back to the headstone. So Duffin interviewed Helen Henderson in 1977, somewhere in Box Butte County, where the marker is at. I think she was in Bridgeport. But anyway, Helen, and I wrote for his research because I'm still not sure. He interviewed Helen for his recent research and subsequent article, and Duffin began the research because Duffin is from England or had relatives from England and thought he was related to her, to Amanda. And when he started researching, he's like, wait, what? Names are screwed up. So he was told by Helen that MJ had a stone inscribed for her, Amanda, and came out again on another wagon train and placed it at her grave. So the local story says he went and got the headstone, didn't come back pushing a wheelbarrow, but was with another wagon train coming out. And then put the marker on the grave. And there are also still some other stories that he did bring it in a wheelbarrow. Yeah. And this wheelbarrow story, it comes up in a couple of other grave stories in Nebraska. So is it a confusion of the story? You know, two different stories. What did he, didn't he? Doesn't matter. The stone is actually there. It's just a question of really how did it get there? So the stone, Helen continued, the stone as we saw it and placed the surviving piece together was like the sketch. Apparently this stone had been prepared for someone else or was spoiled. The engraver had crossed out the former inscription, turned the stone upside down, and put the Lamme inscription on it. It might have been the same error was made on the Lamme name. Maybe it had been damaged and was hard to decipher. Maybe someday more can be found in some diary of the wagon train they were in. So we know Amanda's husband went and got a headstone. We don't know if it had been reused or if her name was misspelled, or did they misspell it and they flipped it upside down, wrote the right name, but we only have the wrong one now. Yeah. I don't think her husband would have paid for a headstone if the name was spelled wrong.
I'd hope not. After traveling 200 miles with a wheelbarrow?
Yeah. And then, totally in love with this woman, and then, good enough. Yeah, you spelled my name wrong. Good enough. Yeah, no, I don't think that happened. I tend to
maybe it was like a private joke between them.
It could be. We have no idea.
I always told her I'd spell her name wrong when she died.
I tend to think that as time went on, parts of the letters were rubbed off, and I think Duffin's research also points more toward this even though he gives several options of what actually happened. So according to Duffin's research, on June 30th, 1850, diarist Micajah Littleton camped opposite or directly north of Courthouse Rock, reporting that in the course of a 20-mile journey, we have already passed 6 graves today, all west of Pumpkin Creek. 4 of these were Missourians. N. Campbell, June 16th, age 21, of Missouri. Samuel Hinch, June 17th, age 33 years and 4 days old, of Saline County, Missouri. Calvin Green, June 12th, age 23, Howard County, Missouri. Amanda Lamme, June 23rd, age 28, Boone County, Missouri. B.E. Davis, June 17th, age 26. William Dalton, June 17th, age 24, Jones County, Iowa. So Littleton noted the correct spelling of her name. He doesn't know who she is. Just, this is the grave I passed, and this is the name that's on it. So her name was spelled right to begin with. Duffin also found an article From Marthasville to Marysville in 1850 by Charles W. Bryan, which is based partly off of May Jackson Lamme's letters. On January 10th, 1851, 3 months after his arrival, Lamme wrote his first letter home relating how they had settled at the diggings prices of commodities, then the sad news of the loss of his wife, Amanda, and his great concern for the welfare of his 3 daughters. So he's writing in a letter he's got 3 daughters. We just don't know why nobody wanted to talk about her, and why there's not really anything in the historical record about her.
And she wasn't nothing special.
Yeah, and again, I'm not spending 6 to 10 months researching each podcast episode. So if I was, I would go out to California and try and find out what the hell happened to her sister. Lacking any details of the date or place of Amanda's death, the author has concluded that this occurred along the Humboldt River. May Jackson Lamme's second letter is significant, for it places the wagon train at Fort Kearny, Nebraska on June 8, 1850. A check through trail diaries indicates that the average time required for a wagon train to travel between Fort Kearny and Courthouse Rock was between 12 and 14 days. This could well place the Lamme-Maupin train in the Pumpkin Creek area just east of Courthouse Rock about June 21st to 22nd, 1850. Here, Amanda probably succumbed to the cholera and was buried on the 23rd. So, thank you for doing the research for me and finding all that information out ahead of time. It's, it's accurate. This is her. So Courthouse Rock is just south of Bridgeport, and Kearny is what? North Platte's 4 from here.
Yeah.
Kearny's 3?
Yeah, 3, I'd say.
About 3 hours.
3.5, yeah.
So today, 3.5 hours by car. Back then, 12 to 14 days.
In Nebraska.
Yeah. In June.
Walking a fortnight.
Yeah. So there are also stories that vandals destroyed the original marker, but to me, it's far more plausible that the multitude of cattle that grazed in the area are the true culprits. Locals to the area attest to the fact that it is likely just happenstance that the cattle were there and over time eroded away the headstone that had been erected. Sorry, I stumble when I forget a word.
But that makes sense if you look at almost any of the old gravestones out here, especially the granite ones. If you get older and older and older, they just start to become just...
Yeah.
slabs.
And they're also exposed to the elements, but if you're a cow and your back itches, you're going to tell all your cow friends about this granite thing sticking up out of the ground, and hey, I can go.
Wearing.
Yeah.
It could also be through acid rain, which has become more of a problem as time has gone on.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, Lamme and Lammen sound similar. And let's say the E got rubbed off on her name. So now it just says Lamm. Let's say part of the second M gets rubbed off. You rub off.
Looks like an I.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it looks like
that.
Lamin. And it could just be that it wore that way. This is just me guessing and trying to figure things out because they do have the stone. Reportedly, the stone is still in front of the newer marker, but it's just bits. So, and no one took care to preserve it. You know, if you went out there today, archaeologists would be like, no, we got to preserve this other one. We need to do some, electrospectrograph crap on it and see what we can figure out, and then we would probably have a better answer. But it was just like, yeah, it's all fallen down and broken. And so no one thought to preserve it for future. And there is also some other research that someone with the name Lamme possibly passed through here. And they were from England, as was Amanda's distant relatives. So her parents were from Kentucky, and the lineage gets spotty the farther back you go. So it might be people thought she was from England because they're either getting her mixed up with this other person or because part of her lineage is from England. And, we kept records. They just weren't as in detail and thorough sometimes as we have them today. So in 1912, the state of Nebraska erected all those awesome Oregon Trail markers that you see. They're the little short, like Cleopatra's Needle. What do you call those? In the Washington Monument. They're shaped kind of like that, but the tops tend to be more rounded off.
Oh, like an obelisk?
Yeah, but with the tops rounded a little bit. And they're all over out here. If you're tracking the actual Oregon Trail, you can see them everywhere. Yep. There's one outside of Legacy. Some people are upset because technically the middle of the road is the trail, and the marker is outside the museum.
Right here.
Yeah, put it right in the middle of the road so everybody can drive into it, and we replace it every year. But anyway, they're all over the place out here. And the state of Nebraska ones were tall and made of granite. The old marker for Amanda at this point in time in 1912 is broken and beyond repair. They have bits of it that they need to deal with. So nobody really wrote it down, but, was her name partly broken and worn off? Probably, just given the length of time. It's already been 60 years. Could it be that two people with similar names died nearby each other at different times and they got mixed up? Yep, that could happen.
That seems highly unlikely.
Yeah, I'm just going, that could happen,
It
but
could happen,
probably not. Cholera was deadly and killed thousands of people on the trail, so maybe this Lamme person died and didn't get a grave marker. I don't know. Nobody wrote it down. These things are all possible. The only probable thing is what we have. The marker got broken and was worn away, and we don't know much past that. People who did get grave markers were typically made of wood. And wood wears away, falls over, gets transported by animals. It is what it is. Few people got nice granite ones because their husbands traveled 200 miles to get them a marker. So the new Oregon Trail marker also marked Amanda's grave. This new marker has her name spelled as Lamme, and one side reads Amanda, consort of M.J. Lamme of Devonshire, England, born February 22nd, 1822, died June 23rd, 1850 of cholera. And the other side of the marker is the famous one that says, here's where the trail went through. So at that point in time, when they erected these, they already got the name wrong, and we don't really know how that happened. So you also may think that it's weird that there's this information about the trail on one side and Amanda on the other. But for me, living out here, that doesn't strike me as odd. For example, the one that is Highway 26 that goes to Torrington, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Torrington and east to Minnetonka. Yeah. 92's down in Gearing.
Yeah.
So there is another one of these Oregon Trail markers right there at the border to Wyoming, and it tells you on that marker that the real trail is a couple miles south of that marker, and the reason is because it's on private land. So it's not actually unusual to have something on the back. Not all of them have things on the back. Some of them do. And they just felt that this was a good spot to do a double one because they had some additional information. Like I said before, Horse Creek Treaty as well. The marker is north of where it actually was. So Duffin has his own theories as well, and I'm going to read this to you. Here the mistaken identity might have occurred, given the great similarity between the Lamme and Lammen names. Lamme was interpreted as Lammen. It is also possible that with the passage of time, old headboards from other contemporary graves might have become confused and placed together. Perhaps a Devonshire, England 49er was buried nearby. In this manner, facts might have been taken from more than one headboard, thus indicating an error to be engraved on the marble marker. Who knows? We don't really know. We just know that when the Oregon Trail markers were put up, they knew she was there. They wanted her to be remembered, and that's what everybody thought it was. So Mrs. Henderson's statement that the marble headstone had crossed out engraving on the bottom end, thus indicating prior use, is also significant. Possibly a mistake in this is engraving rendered the stone unusable to the purchaser, but a headstone in this condition would have been suitable to mark an older pioneer grave. Later, this marble headstone was broken either by cattle or vandal. And that sort of makes sense too. Somebody paid for a headstone. Dude, you got the name wrong. And then here comes Mr. Lamme. He ain't got a lot of money. He's heading west.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, dude, I can take it. Just turn it the right way and put the right name on it. And then somehow it got mixed up in the next 60 years and broken as well and worn away. And maybe it's a multitude of factors of how this happened. Anyway, it's unlikely we will ever know the true story of how Lamme became Lammen and then Lamme again. But I think the important thing to remember here is that people cared enough to bury her and erect a grave marker. When the marker crumbled, people still cared enough to remember her to try and rectify the situation of the broken marker. Still further into the future, Duffin took the time to do the research and try and find the true story, and Amanda's historical marker only tells one part of her story, which is one of the thousands who sought a better life out west but never made it. So if you're related to her, yeah, you want to know, is it her, is it not her? But for me...
I'd be curious.
Yeah.
Isn't there... I want to say there's a Lamme family here.
There could be. I'm not sure.
So many last names I go through, especially when I was up at the college. And I could have swore there was a Lamme.
Could have been. But, I not only did I want to, talk about Amanda and remember Amanda, but... I think this is a good case of how hard it is to find the truth when there isn't documentation, and how hard it is to dig for this, that, and the other thing. And when Duffin wrote this in, I think it was 1977, the article was published, he had pushed for them to correct her name. And at that time, the big historical markers that we see, them big 6 feet, 7 feet tall markers, that marker wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
In 1977. And he wrote at the end of his article that he would hope that someone in the state would look into this and reconsider it and make things right. And they have with that marker.
Because that's another thing I wanted to ask is, do they constantly upgrade and make more markers throughout time?
So Rebecca's is a good example. Rebecca Winters had her her marker put up, and it wears away over time. You know, the paint peels off just due to natural weathering. I believe there were a couple of gunshot holes in Rebecca Winters's. Her marker was in really bad shape, and when they had that whole controversy of they were going to move her or not, the state had already commissioned a new marker. I forget what it was. There was a minor error on the old sign, and they corrected it on the new one, and I can't remember what it was now, but they corrected the error, updated it to make sure it was factual. And then it sat in, you know, the DOT building over there on the highway when you go south of Gearing and you're headed toward Kimball. You know, their big area where all their gravel trucks and stuff are. It was out there all wrapped up, ready to go. They were just waiting for this stupid controversy crap to end, because if Rebecca stayed, they were going to put the new marker right in place of where the old one was. If they were going to move her to the Oregon Trail, they were still keeping the marker in that spot. They were just going to move it up onto the edge of the highway, rather than down in the little area where she's at. So they do monitor them, check them. You know, if a marker goes up and there's some wrong data, it's a lot to change it because they're not cheap.
And for those, and they do this in several other states, so I'm sure other people know what I'm talking about. These state marker signs that a lot of these states use, they're not like your road signs. They're not cheap, thin little plastic things. They're heavy metal, and the letters are like engraved almost into the
they're like
itself.
Raised out of
raised
it.
out.
Yeah.
And usually they're kind of trimmed up with some gold filigree or some gold paint, so it kind of glimmers, catches your eye is the idea. And that's what eventually fades out.
Yeah.
And then it gets this weird kind of patina and just kind of darkens out to nothing eventually. So,
and then it's almost impossible to read them, but they...
eventually you have to basically get right up close to it and read the embossed letters.
And I know the ones in New York State. I'm going to see if this time, if I can't get to the old slave cemetery. My nephew knows the exact location of it, so I can get a picture of it because I want to go see it. But New York State's state colors are blue and yellow. And so the outline of the sign is in yellow, and the letters are yellow on a blue background. And I've seen some really bad ones, and I'm like, man, they need to get that updated. But again, when you...
New York has a lot of problems that it has to deal with.
And I'm not sure that's a high priority.
Probably not. I can't imagine after what you've talked to me about New York's problems that I'd be really worried about a sign.
But I do know, at least in Nebraska, there is a review process, and they do continually go through the signs.
Yeah, and they do keep up our signs.
Yeah. And it might be that they're like, that really needs to be done, but it's got like 2 years more of life. And so they schedule it out, and they do get replaced. So if it is 2025... March of 2025, as we record this, if you go see the Rebecca Winters gravesite marker, it has been up for about 2 years at this point in time. 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it looks really good.
And it looks really nice. And they will, again, at some point in time, have to replace it just because that's how things work. Anyway, that's our story on Amanda and a little bit of history out here in the Panhandle. There's, I think, I don't want to say don't go see it, because, if you ever have the opportunity to go onto the private land and see it, take that opportunity, because not a lot of people get it. But I just wanted to highlight, it is important to me that we remember all the people we can, and it's also important to me for folks to understand just how hard this is sometimes. Because some of the information that Duffin had access to, and I have the PDF of his article, and he cites his sources, and I can't find those sources anywhere. And they're just out of print and haven't been scanned somewhere, and I would just have to randomly luck out with somebody having a copy of it. So I'm thankful that Reg Lamme wrote the article, and that I was able to find access to the article on the State Historical Society's website, and it was freely available to download. So I was very happy about that, because I'm not sure how far back copyright goes with Nebraska History Magazine.
I'm sure they're not, going to do a Disney about it.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's on their website, and the PDF is freely available. So you're not breaking any laws by downloading it.
Nope.
So that's it for this time. Next time, we're going to talk about not people and not buildings. And you'll have to come back next week to find out what it is. For now, I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.